Vanessa didn't sleep much that night. Not because anything was wrong, because everything suddenly mattered too much. She lay awake beside the soft glow of Caleb's bedroom lamp, listening to winter wind move through the trees outside, while her thoughts spiraled endlessly. I'm falling in love with him. The sentence repeated quietly in her mind over and over again. Clear now, undeniable, and terrifying. Because love changed things. Love demanded things. Love asked people to choose. Vanessa. Sterling had built her entire life around never needing to choose anyone over herself. And now suddenly, she wanted to. Oh! Morning arrived gray and snow-covered. Vanessa woke to the smell of coffee and low voices downstairs. For one peaceful, disoriented second, she forgot where she was. Then she heard Lily laughing below the bedroom floorboards and immediately smiled into the pillow. That alone felt dangerous. She pulled on Caleb's sweater again and walked downstairs quietly. The sight waiting in the kitchen almost physically hurt. Caleb stood at the stove making pancakes while Lily sat on the counter, dramatically narrating something about capitalist penguins. Soft morning light filled the room. Music played quietly. And both of them looked up the second Vanessa entered, like they'd been waiting for her. God. Her chest tightened painfully. Lily grinned immediately. She lives here emotionally now. Lily, Caleb warned automatically. What? I'm just observing patterns. Vanessa sat slowly at the island, trying not to look overwhelmed by how warm this felt. Caleb placed coffee in front of her without asking. Again, always remembering. You're staring, he said softly. Vanessa blinked. I'm processing. That sounds serious. It is. Lily narrowed her eyes suspiciously between them. You two keep looking at each other like emotionally damaged Disney characters. Caleb sighed. We need to limit your internet access. It's too late for me. Vanessa laughed helplessly into her coffee. And suddenly Caleb smiled too. A real smile. Relaxed enough that something inside her chest almost broke from the sight of it. Because she realized then, he smiled more now. Since the thought settled deep. Dangerously deep. Oh! The peace lasted exactly 37 minutes. Then Vanessa's phone rang. Richard, of course. The warmth in the kitchen faded instantly. Caleb noticed immediately. You don't have to answer. But Vanessa already knew she did, because her real life never waited politely outside the door. She stood and walked toward the living room before answering sharply. What? Richard's voice came calm and cold through the speaker. You need to come back to Denver. Vanessa closed her eyes briefly. Why? The Zurich investors want emergency restructuring. A pause. And there's another issue. Her stomach tightened. What issue? Richard hesitated just long enough to matter. The press found something. Cold spread instantly through her chest. What did they find? A photo. Silence. Vanessa stopped breathing for half a second. Richard continued carefully. You leaving Evergreen with Hayes yesterday? Her pulse dropped hard. What? The article hasn't published yet, Richard said. But it will. Vanessa looked instinctively toward the kitchen, toward Caleb, toward the peaceful little life sitting only one room away from exploding into public attention. No. Richard's voice softened slightly for the first time in years. Vanessa, this is going to get ugly. The fear hit fully then. Not for herself. For Caleb. For Lily. People in her world didn't just notice relationships. They consumed them. Analyzed them. Exposed them. Destroyed privacy piece by piece. And suddenly she understood exactly why Caleb had feared this from the beginning. Vanessa lowered her voice immediately. Who has the photo? Business media freelancer. Richard paused. We can probably contain it if you move carefully. Contain it. Like feelings were disasters. Like Caleb was a liability to manage. Vanessa hated how normal that language sounded in her world. I'll come back, she said quietly, then ended the call. For several seconds she simply stood there staring at nothing, while panic moved steadily through her chest. This was exactly what she feared. Exactly. Behind her, floorboards creaked softly. Caleb. Vanessa turned slowly. And the second he saw her face, he knew. What happened? She swallowed hard. There's a photo. Silence. Real silence. Caleb's expression changed immediately. Not anger, not surprise, just quiet resignation. Like some part of him always knew this moment would come eventually. Published? Not yet. He nodded once slowly. The calmness somehow made this worse. Vanessa stepped toward him quickly. I can stop it. Caleb's eyes stayed on hers. That's not the point. Pain tightened in her chest immediately. Because he was right. The problem wasn't one article. It was what came after. Attention, speculation, pressure. everything he hated, everything she accidentally brought into his life. Lily appeared near the hallway, rubbing sleep from one eye. Why does everyone suddenly look emotionally catastrophic? Neither adult answered immediately, and Lily's expression changed. Oh no. Vanessa felt sick suddenly. Actually sick, because for the first time since falling for Caleb, she realized love might not be enough to protect something fragile from the world surrounding her. And judging by the look in Caleb's eyes, he realized it too. The house felt different after that call, smaller somehow, quieter, like reality had stepped through the front door and settled heavily into every room. Vanessa stood near the living room window, trying to steady her breathing, while snow continued falling peacefully outside. The mountains looked exactly the same, which somehow made everything worse, because her world was changing rapidly while Evergreen remained calm and untouched. Lily looked between both adults carefully. Okay, she said slowly. That was definitely billionaire problem silence. Caleb rubbed one hand across the back of his neck tiredly. Lily? No, seriously, she interrupted. Did somebody leak emotional documents? Vanessa laughed weakly despite herself. That tiny laugh broke some of the tension for half a second. But only for half a second. Caleb looked toward Lily gently. Can you give us a minute? Lily studied both of them quietly now, more observant than most adults, then finally nodded once. Okay, she pointed between them dramatically, but no emotionally devastating decisions without supervision. She disappeared upstairs, and silence returned immediately. Heavy this time. Painfully heavy. Vanessa wrapped her arms around herself tightly. There's going to be media attention. Caleb leaned lightly against the kitchen counter. I figured. No, you don't understand. She shook her head quickly. These people don't stop. They'll investigate your past, your finances, your family. At that word, family, something tightened visibly in Caleb's expression, and Vanessa's chest hurt instantly. God. Lily. She hadn't even fully thought about Lily yet. Reporters near the garage, cameras, questions. The idea alone made her sick. I can shut it down, she said quickly. Richard knows people at the publication. Caleb looked at her quietly. And after that, Vanessa stopped, because there would always be another article, another camera, another person trying to turn private things into public entertainment. Caleb walked slowly toward the window beside her. Snow drifted outside between the pine trees, while morning light faded beneath thick clouds. This is what your world does, he said softly. It wasn't judgment. That somehow made it worse. Vanessa looked up at him desperately. I never wanted this near you. I know, but it is now. Another quiet nod. The calmness in him felt heartbreaking, like he'd already started emotionally preparing himself for damage. Vanessa stepped closer immediately. Don't do that. What? That thing where you start accepting pain before it even happens. His eyes met hers slowly, and for 1 second, he looked tired in a way she'd never seen before. Not physically tired, emotionally tired. I spent years building a quiet life for Lily, he admitted softly. And now suddenly reporters might be parked outside my garage because I fell in love with someone famous. The words hit her chest so hard she almost physically flinched. Fell in love. Neither of them moved afterward. Neither breathed properly either, because this was the first time either of them had actually said it aloud. Not implied, not felt, said. Vanessa stared at him. Caleb looked almost surprised by his own honesty, like the truth escaped before he could stop it. And suddenly all the fear inside her collided painfully with love at the exact same time. You love me, she whispered. His jaw tightened slightly. Yes. No hesitation. No uncertainty. Just yes. The simplicity of it nearly broke her heart completely. Vanessa felt tears threaten instantly, which was becoming deeply inconvenient lately. She stepped toward him without thinking and grabbed the front of his sweater tightly. You can't say things like that while I'm emotionally unstable. A tiny sad smile touched his mouth. I think that ship sailed weeks ago. Vanessa laughed through tears despite herself, then kissed him immediately, harder this time, desperate almost, because suddenly everything felt fragile. Temporary, like the outside world was already reaching for them. Caleb kissed her back instantly, hands sliding carefully against her waist while she held onto him like grounding herself, physically, and for one perfect painful second, nothing else existed again. Until Vanessa's phone buzzed violently against the kitchen counter. Both froze. Reality. Again. Always reality. Vanessa stared at the screen. Marcus, she answered breathlessly. What? Marcus sounded stressed immediately. You need to see this before it spreads. Cold fear moved through her instantly. What happened? The photo leaked early. Silence. Vanessa stopped breathing. Marcus continued carefully. It's already online. A pause. And Richard's right. People are digging. Her chest tightened painfully. How bad? Another pause. Then quietly, they found the Italy story. Everything in the room went still. Vanessa looked at Caleb slowly. His expression emptied immediately. Not shock, not panic. Something worse. Old pain reopening. Marcus kept talking, but Vanessa barely heard him anymore. Because suddenly she understood exactly what was about to happen. The media wouldn't just expose their relationship. They would drag Caleb's worst memory back into public view. And this time, they'd drag Lily through it too. Everything changed within hours. That was the terrifying thing about public attention. One leaked photo, one headline, one rumor, and suddenly private lives stopped belonging to the people living them. Oh, by noon, Vanessa's relationship with mystery Colorado mechanic had spread across 3 business media sites and 2 celebrity gossip accounts. The photos weren't even dramatic, just her leaving Evergreen beside Caleb while snow fell around them. But the captions turned it into spectacle anyway. Billionaire CEO's secret romance. Who is Caleb Hayes? Former engineer linked to fatal Italian test program. Vanessa sat frozen in her Denver office staring at the articles while anger and panic twisted together inside her chest. Across from her, Marcus looked equally horrified. They're moving fast. No kidding. Another notification appeared across her laptop. More photos. Hayes Auto. Caleb outside the garage. Lily walking beside him carrying hot chocolate. Vanessa's stomach dropped violently. No. Marcus leaned forward immediately. What? They photographed Lily. Silence. Actual silence. Marcus swore quietly under his breath, and suddenly something cold and furious settled into Vanessa's chest. Not fear anymore. Anger. Because whatever happened to her was one thing. But dragging a child into this? Absolutely not. She grabbed her phone instantly. Caleb answered on the second ring. Hey. The calmness in his voice almost destroyed her immediately. Where's Lily? At school. Do not pick her up yourself today. A pause. You saw the photos. They photographed Lily. Silence. Then finally, yeah. His voice sounded different now. Flattened carefully. Controlled too tightly. Vanessa stood from her desk immediately. I'm coming to Evergreen. You don't have to. Yes, she snapped softly. I do. Another silence followed. Then Caleb said quietly, Okay. Oh. The drive through the mountains felt endless. News notifications kept exploding across Vanessa's phone every few minutes while snowstorm clouds darkened overhead. By the time she reached Hayes Auto, 2 unfamiliar SUVs already sat parked across the street. Press. Vanessa's jaw tightened instantly. One photographer noticed her vehicle immediately and lifted a camera. Flash. Another camera turned. Then another. Oh, absolutely not. Vanessa stepped out of the Range Rover already furious. One reporter moved toward her quickly. Miss Sterling, how long have you been involved with Caleb Hayes? Another voice shouted, Did you know about the Italian test fatality before dating him? A third, Is your company concerned about Hayes's background? Vanessa stopped walking slowly, and every instinct inside her sharpened instantly. For years, people feared Vanessa Sterling in negotiation rooms because she rarely lost control publicly. Today, you photographed a child today, she said coldly. The small crowd quieted immediately. You parked outside a school to photograph a little girl walking with her father. Her eyes moved across every camera pointed toward her. You should all be deeply ashamed of yourselves. Silence. Sharp, uncomfortable silence. Good. Vanessa stepped closer. If I see one more photograph of Lily Hayes published anywhere, every lawyer connected to Sterling, Global will personally introduce themselves to your employers. Nobody spoke. Nobody moved. And for the first time all day, the cameras lowered slightly. Vanessa turned and walked into the garage without another word. Her hands were shaking by the time the doors closed behind her. Caleb stood near the workbench watching her quietly. You didn't have to do that. Yes, she said immediately. I did. The garage felt tense, heavy, not like home anymore. Not today. Vanessa walked toward him quickly. Where is Lily? At Mateo's sister's house until school pickup chaos dies down. Relief hit her instantly. Good. Caleb studied her carefully. You're angry. I'm furious. At that, a tiny, exhausted, almost smile touched the corner of his mouth. Yeah, he murmured. I noticed. Vanessa looked around the garage. Even inside, things felt different now. Exposed. Unsafe. and suddenly guilt hit her so hard it nearly took her breath away. I brought this here. Caleb's expression softened immediately. Vanessa, no. She shook her head hard. This is my fault. It's not. Yes, it is. Her voice cracked slightly. You had a quiet life before me. Silence. Then Caleb walked toward her slowly. You think I regret you? The pain in his voice shattered something inside her immediately. Vanessa looked up at him helplessly. I think your life was peaceful. Caleb stopped directly in front of her. It still is, he said quietly. She stared at him in disbelief. He actually smiled slightly this time. Tired, small, honest. You're the best thing that's happened to me in years. God. That almost ruined her completely. Vanessa grabbed the front of his jacket tightly. This isn't fair. No, he agreed softly. It's not. Outside, another camera flash burst through the front windows. Both noticed instantly. Reality sitting right outside the door waiting for them. Vanessa closed her eyes briefly. I can make this stop. Caleb went still. What does that mean? The hesitation before answering told him everything already, and the second his expression changed, her chest hurt instantly. Vanessa, if I publicly deny things, she whispered carefully, the attention dies faster. Silence. Complete silence. Because both of them understood exactly what she was saying, Caleb stepped back slowly. Not dramatic. Still devastating. You want to pretend this isn't real. No, but you're considering it. Tears burned instantly behind her eyes. Because yes, not because she didn't love him, because she was terrified of what her world would do to his. Vanessa tried stepping toward him again. Caleb, but he shook his head once. And suddenly the distance between them felt enormous. Not physical distance, something worse. The beginning of hurt. The silence inside the garage became unbearable. Vanessa stood frozen near the workbench while Snowstorm light filtered weakly through the windows and camera flashes occasionally burst. Outside like distant lightning. And across from her, Caleb looked hurt, not angry. That somehow felt worse. Oh, you think I'm ashamed of you. His voice stayed calm, quiet. But Vanessa heard the damage underneath it immediately. No, she said quickly. That's not what this is. Then what is it? She opened her mouth. Nothing came out. Because how could she explain this properly? How could she make him understand that loving him wasn't the problem? The problem was her world, the cruelty of it, the invasion, the endless destruction of anything private or gentle. Vanessa stepped closer carefully. I'm trying to protect you. At that, Caleb looked away briefly, and that tiny movement hurt her instantly. That sounds familiar. The words landed hard between them. Because weeks ago, he'd said the exact same thing to her. I was trying to protect you, and she hated it then too. God. Now she understood. Vanessa rubbed one trembling hand across her forehead. This is different. No, Caleb said softly. It's really not. The garage fell silent again, painfully silent. Vanessa could actually feel the distance growing between them now. Not because love disappeared, because fear arrived. And fear complicated everything. Outside, another flash exploded against the windows. Caleb glanced toward it automatically. Then quietly, I don't care about reporters, but I do. His eyes returned to hers slowly. I know. That calm acceptance nearly broke her composure completely. Vanessa looked down at the concrete floor because suddenly tears threatened again. I can handle people attacking me, she whispered. I've done it for years. Caleb stayed quiet. But Lily didn't choose this, Vanessa continued shakily. And if they start digging into Elena or Italy or your past, they already are. The reality of that sentence settled coldly through the room. Vanessa closed her eyes briefly. Everything she touched became public eventually. Everything. And now Caleb and Lily were trapped inside that machinery with her. The guilt felt unbearable. Finally, Caleb spoke again. You know what hurts? She looked up slowly. That your first instinct was to erase us. The words hit directly into her chest. Because he wasn't wrong. Vanessa stepped toward him immediately. That's not fair, isn't it? No, her voice cracked. My first instinct was panic. Caleb's expression softened slightly at that. Just slightly. Vanessa swallowed hard. I love you. The words escaped before fear could stop them. Real silence followed. Deep enough that even the storm outside seemed quieter suddenly. Caleb stared at her. Vanessa's heartbeat hammered painfully. Because this was it now, no taking it back. No hiding behind careful, almost feelings anymore. I love you, she repeated softly. And I'm terrified. Something inside Caleb's expression broke open then. Not weakness, emotion. raw, honest emotion he usually kept carefully controlled. He stepped toward her slowly. "Vanessa, I don't know how to do this right," she admitted shakily. "I only know that the idea of hurting Lily makes me sick and the idea of losing you feels worse." God, there it was. The whole truth finally standing between them, exposed and trembling. Caleb reached her carefully, one hand settling gently against her face, and the tenderness of that touch nearly destroyed her composure completely. "You're not losing me." A tear finally slipped down her cheek. "You don't know that." His forehead rested lightly against hers. "Yes," he said quietly, "I do." Outside, reporters still waited. Cameras still flashed. The world still circled them hungrily. But inside the garage, for one fragile moment, none of it mattered. Vanessa closed her eyes tightly. "I don't want to hide you." Caleb's thumb brushed beneath her eyes slowly. "Then don't." "But I also don't know how to survive this." He exhaled softly. "We'll figure it out." That word hit almost as hard as "I love you." Because Caleb never spoke like someone halfway committed. Never temporary. Never uncertain. Vanessa laughed weakly through tears. "You realize this is becoming aggressively emotional." A tiny smile finally appeared at the corner of his mouth. "Yeah, and I hate crying." "I know. And your life was significantly calmer before me." "That part's debatable." Despite everything, she laughed softly, and Caleb smiled fully for the first time all day. God, that smile. Vanessa suddenly realized something important. The outside world could complicate things, pressure them, expose them, but it couldn't change what this already was. Because somewhere between prototype, engines and snowy mountains and coffee, and quiet conversations, they had accidentally built something real, and real things were worth fighting for. By evening, the snowstorm finally stopped. Evergreen settled into cold quiet beneath silver moonlight, while reporters slowly disappeared from the roads outside town. Not because they lost interest, because darkness and weather forced them to pause temporarily. Tomorrow they'd come back. Vanessa knew that. Caleb knew it too. But for tonight, they had breathing room. Lily returned just after sunset carrying a backpack, 2 cookies from Mateo's sister, and enough emotional awareness to terrify licensed therapists. The second she entered the garage office, she looked between Vanessa and Caleb carefully, then narrowed her eyes. "Okay," she announced. "Either you two solved your emotional catastrophe or made it significantly worse." Vanessa laughed weakly from the couch. "That's fair." Lily set her backpack down slowly. "You both look like people who cried professionally." Caleb sighed softly. "You're 11 and observant." She climbed onto the chair across from them. "So what's the update?" Vanessa exchanged a look with Caleb. God, how were they supposed to explain this to a child? Apparently, Caleb wondered the same thing because he rubbed one hand slowly across the back of his neck before answering carefully. "Things are complicated right now." Lily considered that seriously. "Because of the internet, people?" Yes. She nodded once. "Okay." Then immediately, "That's stupid." Vanessa blinked. Lily shrugged. "You love each other. Why are strangers acting weird about it?" Silence. Absolute silence. Because children had an incredible ability to reduce emotionally devastating situations into brutally simple truths. Vanessa looked down briefly. Caleb looked suspiciously close to laughing. Lily pointed at both of them dramatically. "You're making this harder than necessary. We are not discussing relationship strategy with an 11-year-old. Caleb informed her. "You should. I'm clearly the smartest person here. Honestly, debatable." Vanessa laughed again despite herself, and hearing that laugh seemed to relax something inside Caleb immediately. Lily noticed that too. Of course she did. Her expression softened slightly. Then she looked toward Vanessa quietly. "Are you leaving?" The question hit the room softly, still devastating. Vanessa stared at her for half a second, because suddenly she realized this little girl had already started emotionally, attaching to her too. God, that scared her almost more than anything else. Vanessa answered honestly. "I don't want to." Lily nodded once like that was the only important answer. "Okay then." Simple, certain, like staying should obviously matter more than fear. Caleb looked at his daughter carefully now. "You know things might get stressful for a while." Lily thought about that, then shrugged. "People already think I'm weird because I gave a school presentation, comparing whales to government systems." Another shrug. "I'll survive." Vanessa burst into helpless laughter. And suddenly the heaviness in the room cracked open enough for warmth to return again. Not perfect warmth, not easy, but real. Later that night, after Lily went upstairs, Vanessa stood outside, on the back porch wrapped in Caleb's jacket, watching moonlight reflect across untouched snow. The world looked frozen, quiet enough to hear her own breathing. The porch door opened softly behind her. Caleb stepped outside carrying 2 mugs of tea. You disappear a lot when you're thinking. Vanessa accepted the mug carefully. I'm beginning to notice that too. Cold air curled around them gently. For a while neither spoke. Then Vanessa whispered softly, I almost ruined this today. Caleb leaned beside her against the porch railing. No. Yes, she shook her head. I got scared and immediately tried controlling the situation instead of trusting us. He stayed quiet, because again, he understood. Vanessa stared out toward the dark trees. I spent so long surviving by staying in control that panic still feels like something I need to manage immediately. She laughed weakly. Apparently even with feelings. Caleb looked at her carefully. You came back. That simple sentence settled deep inside her chest. Because he was right, fear told her to run, to protect herself, protect him, contain the damage. But love brought her back to Evergreen anyway. Back to him. Vanessa looked up slowly. I meant what I said earlier. His voice lowered gently. I know. I love you. Silence followed. Not awkward, sacred. Caleb stepped closer until warmth surrounded her again despite the freezing air. Then quietly, I love you too. No hesitation. No fear this time. Just truth spoken clearly beneath moonlight and snow-covered mountains. Vanessa closed her eyes briefly because hearing it still almost hurt. Not painful hurt, the kind of overwhelming happiness that frightened. People unused to depending on anything. Caleb's hand found hers slowly, fingers threading together naturally now, like they already belonged there. You know what's funny? Vanessa murmured. What? I used to think love would feel dramatic. A small smile touched his mouth. And now? She looked at him softly. Now I think it feels like peace. God! The expression on his face after that nearly stopped her heart entirely. Caleb leaned down and kissed her slowly beneath the winter sky while Evergreen slept quietly around them. No cameras, no reporters, no billion-dollar expectations. Just 2 exhausted people finally choosing each other completely. And for the first time in years, Vanessa Sterling stopped feeling alone. For the first time since the chaos started, things became quiet again. Not publicly. The internet still talked. Articles still circulated. Speculation still existed. But inside Evergreen, inside the small spaces that actually mattered, life slowly continued. And somehow that felt more powerful than any headline ever could. A week later, Vanessa sat at Caleb's kitchen table wearing one of his sweaters while reviewing acquisition reports beside a plate of half-eaten pancakes, which honestly summed up her life perfectly now. Lily worked on homework nearby while aggressively criticizing a history textbook. This chapter is emotionally boring. History isn't required to entertain you, Vanessa informed her without looking up from the laptop. It should try harder. Caleb walked through the kitchen carrying coffee and paused briefly. At the sight in front of him, Vanessa noticed immediately. What? He smiled softly. Nothing. That's suspicious. Caleb handed her coffee carefully. You just look like you belong here. The sentence hit her chest with dangerous warmth. Even now, even after weeks together, he still said things that rearranged her entire nervous system casually over breakfast. Lily pointed dramatically with a pencil. I've been saying that. Vanessa laughed softly into the coffee mug. And suddenly she realized something important. This no longer felt temporary. Not emotionally, not practically. Somehow, slowly, naturally, their lives had started blending together, and none of them seemed interested in stopping it. The public situation eventually stabilized, mostly because Vanessa refused to hide. When reporters asked about Caleb, she answered calmly, respectfully, without apology. And slowly the media lost interest once there was no scandal left to chase. Richard Holloway hated every second of it. Naturally, Vanessa stood inside his office 2 days later while Denver snow drifted outside massive glass windows. Richard looked exhausted. You realize you've become impossible lately? Vanessa sat calmly across from him. I've actually become happier. People keep confusing the two. His eyes narrowed slightly. This relationship is changing you. Yes. The directness clearly caught him off guard. Richard leaned back slowly. You built this company by staying emotionally disciplined. Vanessa smiled faintly. And maybe I confused emotional isolation with discipline. Silence settled through the office. Richard studied her carefully now, then finally sighed. You really love him. Not a question anymore. Vanessa looked out across the Denver skyline for one long second before answering softly. Yes. And for the first time in years, saying it aloud didn't scare her. It felt right. Richard rubbed one hand tiredly across his face. Well, he muttered dryly, this is deeply inconvenient for my spreadsheets. Vanessa laughed before she could stop herself. Even Richard smiled slightly at that. Then his expression softened just enough to matter. You look different lately. Vanessa glanced back toward him. How? He considered the question carefully. Less lonely. God, that hit unexpectedly hard, because maybe everyone had noticed long before she did. That Friday night, Vanessa drove back to Evergreen beneath clear winter skies. No reporters waited anymore, no cameras. Just quiet mountain roads and warm, yellow lights glowing from Caleb's house through the trees. Home. The realization arrived naturally now. Not forced. Not frightening. Just true. Vanessa stepped out of the Range Rover smiling before she even reached the porch. The front door opened immediately. Lily pointed triumphantly. She's smiling again. That means Denver didn't emotionally destroy her today. I'm beginning to regret teaching you emotional vocabulary. Too late. Caleb appeared behind Lily, laughing softly. And the second Vanessa saw him, everything inside her settled automatically. Still, every single time, she walked into the warmth of the house while snow drifted softly outside and music played quietly from the kitchen. Normal. Simple. Real. Caleb kissed her gently the second the door closed. Long day? He murmured. The investors remain deeply annoying. That sounds difficult. It's brave of me to continue surviving. His quiet laugh wrapped around her warmly. God, she loved him completely now. Not cautiously anymore. Lily groaned dramatically. You two are becoming emotionally unbearable. Vanessa smiled against Caleb's shoulder. You created this environment. I did, Lily admitted proudly. Later that night, after Lily fell asleep upstairs, Vanessa and Caleb sat together on the back porch beneath a sky full of stars. The mountains stretched endlessly around them, silver beneath moonlight. Peaceful. Vanessa rested quietly against. Caleb sighed, wrapped in blankets, while he held her hand beneath the cold winter air. No reporters, she murmured softly. Looks that way. No billionaires. That too. Vanessa tilted her head back, looking up at the stars. You know what's strange? What? For years I thought success would feel bigger than this. Caleb looked down at her carefully. And now? She smiled softly. Now I think this is the big thing. Silence settled gently between them. Not empty silence. The kind built from comfort. From certainty. From love no longer afraid of itself. Caleb kissed the top of her head lightly. And somewhere beneath the stars above Evergreen, Vanessa Sterling realized she had finally found the one thing success could never buy her. A place where she could simply be loved for who she was when nobody else was watching. Spring arrived slowly in Evergreen. Snow melted from the mountains in quiet, stages while rivers thawed, and pine trees returned to deep green, beneath warmer skies. And somehow, life kept moving forward. Not perfectly, not without stress, but together. 6 months later, Vanessa still spent half her week in Denver. Board meetings, investors, corporate disasters pretending to be urgent priorities. But now something had changed fundamentally. She went home afterward, not to the penthouse. Not to silence and city lights and expensive loneliness. Home meant Evergreen now. Home meant Caleb opening the garage door when her car pulled in late at night. It meant Lily yelling random facts from the kitchen while doing homework badly. It meant coffee already waiting before she asked. It meant peace. Real peace. The kind she once believed people like her never actually got. One Friday evening, Vanessa stood outside Hayes, auto-watching sunset spill gold across the mountains while Caleb closed the garage for the night. Mateo leaned beside the office door, eating chips dramatically. You know, he said thoughtfully, this entire thing started because rich people make emotionally unstable cars. Vanessa laughed softly. That's your takeaway? Yes. Caleb locked the garage and shook his head. He's been unbearable all week. I'm part of the emotional foundation of this business. You steal my fries. That too. Lily burst out of the office carrying folders. Good news, she announced proudly. I got an A on my whale presentation. Vanessa smiled immediately. That's amazing. I also accidentally compared capitalism to squid migration again. Caleb closed his eyes briefly. Why does this keep happening? Because truth matters. Vanessa laughed hard enough she leaned against Caleb's arm. And automatically, effortlessly, his arm wrapped around her waist. Natural now. Everything with them had become natural. No fear anymore. No hesitation. Just love woven quietly into ordinary life. Later that night, Vanessa stood alone for a moment, on the back porch while warm. Spring wind moved through the trees. Inside, she could hear Lily arguing with Caleb about movie rankings, while music drifted softly through the house. Life. Simple, beautiful life. Footsteps approached behind her. Then Caleb's arm slid gently around her waist from behind. You disappeared. Vanessa leaned back against him automatically. I was thinking, that usually leads somewhere emotional. Probably. He kissed softly beneath her ear. What were you thinking about? Vanessa looked out toward the dark mountains, then smiled quietly. You know what's funny? What? The worst day of my year ended up being the best thing that ever happened to me. Caleb's arms tightened slightly around her. The Bugatti? The breakdown. Silence settled softly around them. Then Caleb laughed quietly against her hair. That car caused an unbelievable amount of chaos. Yes, Vanessa agreed softly, and somehow I'd do it all again. He turned her gently toward him then. Warm porch light caught his face while wind moved softly through the trees around the house. Still her favorite face. Still home. Caleb brushed one hand against her cheek slowly. You know I love you, right? Even now. Even after months together. He still said it like it mattered. Vanessa smiled softly. I know. And? She laughed quietly. And I love you too. The warmth in his expression after hearing those words still affected her every single time. Like he never fully expected happiness to stay. So Vanessa kissed him first. Slowly, certainly. The kind of kiss built from choosing each other over and over again until love stopped feeling fragile and started feeling permanent. Inside the house, Lily suddenly yelled, If you two are doing romance again, dinner's ready. Vanessa burst into helpless laughter against Caleb's shoulder while he closed his eyes in defeat. She's impossible. She's your daughter. Unfortunately true. They walked back inside together beneath warm lights and laughter. And the ordinary, beautiful life they accidentally built from one broken car and one impossible meeting in a snowstorm. And for the first time in a very long time, both of them finally understood something simple. Sometimes the best parts of life begin exactly where everything else falls apart.